James pushed open the door of his small home. It was late evening, and the sky outside was painted with streaks of orange and red. Normally, when he came home, his daughter Lily would run to him. She would laugh, hug his legs, and show him the drawing she made while he was gone. But today the house was quiet. "Too quiet, Lily," he called, his voice echoing against the walls. No answer. He stepped into the living room. The table was still set with the simple meal they had eaten the night before. A cup lay on its side, water spilled across the wooden floor. His heart tightened. Something felt wrong. James walked quickly to her room. The door was slightly open, and the small lamp inside flickered weakly. He pushed it open with a trembling hand. The sight froze his blood. The window was open, the curtains flapping in the cold wind. Lily's favorite toy, a small stuffed rabbit, was torn apart on the floor. Scratches, long, deep claw marks were carved into the wooden boards near her bed. "Lily," James shouted, rushing forward. He searched under the bed, in the closet, behind the curtains. But she wasn't there. Only silence answered him. His chest tightened as panic crashed into him like a wave. His little girl gone, James ran outside. The street was empty, but he saw something strange. On the dusty ground near the window were footprints. Not human footprints. They were large, with long toes and clawed ends. And they glowed faintly in the dark, as if some strange energy marked them. Neighbors began to gather when they heard his shouts. An old woman shook her head. "Raiders," she whispered. "I told everyone they would come one day. They take children, sometimes human, sometimes alien. They vanish into the night." James clenched his fists. His jaw locked. "Where do they take them?" he demanded. The woman shrugged, her wrinkled face filled with fear. "No one knows. Those who chase them never come back." James refused to accept that. He was not just anyone. He was Lily's father, and no force in the galaxy would stop him from finding her. He went back inside and searched the room again. His eyes scanned every corner, every detail. On the floor near the broken toy, he found a small piece of fabric, dark, rough, and burned at the edge. It was not from Lily's clothes. It smelled strange, like iron and smoke. Alien. He stuffed the fabric into his pocket. His mind was racing. James had once been a soldier. Long ago, he had fought in border wars between humans and alien clans. He had seen raids before. He knew how they worked. And now that same horror had reached his own home. He could almost hear Lily's laughter in his ears, the way she used to grab his hand and say, "Daddy, you'll always protect me, right?" "I will, Lily," James whispered into the empty room, his throat burning. "I will protect you. I will find you." That night, James packed what little he had: a knife, a small blaster he kept hidden since the war, a half-empty water flask, and Lily's stuffed rabbit, torn but still holding her scent. As he strapped on his boots, his neighbor, a man named Harlan, stepped inside. "James, don't do this," he warned.
"Those raiders, no one who goes after them ever comes back alive."
"They're monsters, not people." James looked at him with fire in his eyes. "Then I'll be the first. She's my daughter. I won't sit here waiting." Harlan sighed and shook his head. "At least wait for help." "There is no help," James said coldly. "No one cares when children are taken. Not until it's too late." Without another word, James stepped out into the night. The footprints glowed faintly ahead, leading toward the dark hills beyond the town. The air was cold and the silence pressed heavily around him. Every step forward was a step into danger. But he did not hesitate. The trail led him past the outskirts, where broken ships lay rusting in the dirt. Shadows shifted in the distance, but James kept walking. He moved quickly, his heart thundering in his chest. At one point, he stopped and crouched low. The sound of strange voices carried on the wind. Alien words, sharp and guttural. He crept closer and saw them. 3 tall figures with gray skin and glowing eyes. They dragged cages behind them filled with stolen goods. James's hand tightened on his blaster. He wanted to rush in to demand Lily back. But she wasn't there, not yet. He forced himself to wait, to learn, to follow. For now, the only thing keeping him alive was silence. The aliens vanished into the hills, and James followed at a distance. The footprints grew fresh again, glowing brighter as if mocking him. His muscles ached, his throat was dry, but his mind was sharper than ever. Somewhere out there, his daughter was calling for him. Somewhere, she was scared and alone, and he swore he would tear apart the stars themselves to bring her home. Behind him, The wind howled through the empty streets. The house stood quiet. The little lamp in Lily's room finally flickered out. The hunt had begun. The glowing footprints led James through the barren hills until dawn broke over the horizon. His legs ached and his throat was dry, but his mind stayed sharp. Every step carried him closer to danger, yet closer to his daughter. When the sun rose higher, he saw it at last. An alien city hidden in the valley below. From the distance, it looked alive like a beast breathing smoke. Towers of black stone rose high, their tops sharpened like blades. Strange lights pulsed on the walls, glowing with an eerie green. The air above shimmered with heat, though the morning was cold. James crouched low, studying it carefully. He had been in alien cities before, back in his soldier days, but this one felt different. It smelled of fear and trade, of markets where lives were sold. He waited until the shadows grew long again before he dared to enter. At dusk, the guards changed shift and he slipped inside with a group of traders. Cloaked figures pushed carts filled with strange goods, glittering stones, steaming jars of glowing liquid, and cages covered with tarps. James pulled his hood low, trying to blend in. Inside, the city was worse than he imagined. Narrow alleys twisted like veins, filled with smoke and noise. The ground was damp, as if the city itself was sweating. Voices shouted in dozens of alien tongues. Hisses, growls, and clicks filled the air. James moved carefully, eyes sharp, scanning every face, every corner. Somewhere here, Lily could be hidden, but what he found first broke his heart. In a dark corner, under a broken sign, stood a row of cages. Inside them were children, not only humans, but alien young too. Some had bright eyes that glowed faintly. Others had strange scales on their skin, but all of them looked thin, weak, and hopeless. James's breath caught in his throat. His fists clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. Rage burned in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. If he rushed now, he would be dead before he even found Lily. He kept walking, his gaze sweeping over each cage. Then he saw her. Not Lily, but a girl unlike the others. She was alien, but still a child. Perhaps 12 or 13 in human years. Her skin shimmered faintly like silver dust, though it was bruised and scarred. Chains bound her arms and her eyes, large, bright, and filled with tears, locked onto James. She didn't cry out. She didn't beg like the others. She just mouthed one word in silence. Help! James froze. His heart twisted. She was not his daughter, but she was someone's daughter. He forced himself to move on, but every step felt heavier. He told himself he couldn't risk it. He told himself his mission was Lily, and yet, the image of that alien girl's eyes wouldn't leave him. James slipped deeper into the market, searching for clues. At a stall, he saw a necklace hanging among other stolen trinkets. His blood ran cold. It was Lily's necklace, the small, star-shaped pendant she wore every day. He moved closer, pretending to inspect the other items. The alien merchant hissed at him, sharp teeth flashing. James forced himself to step back. He couldn't fight here, not yet. But now he knew Lily had been here. His heart hammered with both hope and fury. As he turned to leave, he glanced back toward the cages. The silver-skinned girl was still staring at him. Her lips trembled, and then, in broken human words, she whispered so faintly he almost thought he imagined it. Your daughter. James stopped. The world seemed to freeze around him. He hurried back to the cages, keeping his voice low. What did you say? The girl's chains rattled as she leaned closer. I know. Where? The raiders took her. Her accent was thick, her words rough but clear enough. James's heart thundered in his chest. She knew. She had seen. But before he could say more, a guard stepped forward. A huge alien with dark scales and glowing red eyes shoved him back. No touching, it growled. Pay or leave. James raised his hands, pretending to back down. He gave the girl one last look. Her eyes begged him not to walk away. That night, James found a place to hide in the shadows of the city. He sat on the cold stone, staring at the broken toy rabbit he had carried from home. His mind raced. He came here for Lily. Every second he wasted, she was further away. And yet, if the alien girl truly knew where the raiders had taken his daughter, she was the only lead he had. He whispered into the night, his voice rough. Hold on, Lily, I'll find you. I'll save you. Then after a long silence, he added, and maybe I'll save her too. The city around him roared with noise, but James sat in the dark, preparing. Tomorrow he would break the chains. Tomorrow the hunters would become the hunted. For the first time since Lily was taken, he felt the faint spark of hope. And with that hope came fire. The night was long, and James hardly slept. Every sound of alien voices outside made his hand tighten on his blaster. But it wasn't fear that kept him awake. It was the memory of that silver-skinned girl whispering about his daughter. She knew something. He was sure of it. By morning, the market was alive again. Alien traders shouted in strange voices. Smoke filled the air, and the cages rattled as children inside shifted weakly. James stayed hidden until the guards changed shifts. Then, moving like a shadow, he crept closer to the row of cages. The silver-skinned girl was still there, her chains heavy on her thin arms. When she saw him, her eyes widened with both fear and hope. James crouched near the bars, keeping his voice low. "You said you know where they took my daughter. Tell me," her lips trembled. "Raiders. Black banners. Caves beyond the desert. I saw them take her. Please, free me. They will sell me tonight." James's chest tightened. His mission was clear now. If he left her, he might never find Lily. If he saved her, he would gain both an ally and a guide. But freeing her meant risk. His eyes scanned the guards. Two stood nearby, their weapons sharp and deadly. Their glowing eyes swept the crowd lazily, but they were alert. One wrong move and James would be dead. He took a slow breath. He had been a soldier once. He knew how to fight. And he knew how to strike when no one was looking. That night, when the market quieted and most traders left, James made his move. He slipped through the shadows, his knife gripped tight. The guards were drinking near a fire, their laughter loud. Step by step, James moved closer to the cages. The silver-skinned girl watched him, her eyes wide, as if she could hardly believe he had returned. He pressed a finger to his lips, warning her to stay quiet. She nodded quickly. James reached the lock on her cage. It was thick and alien-made, but he had brought a small tool from his pack. His hands worked fast, his heartbeat loud in his ears. Clink. The lock snapped open. For a moment, everything was silent. Then the girl's chains fell to the ground with a heavy thud. One of the guards turned. His eyes narrowed. James didn't wait. He lunged forward, slamming his knife into the guard's side. The alien roared in pain, crashing to the ground. The second guard drew his weapon, but James fired his blaster first. A sharp beam cut through the smoke and the guard dropped. Shouts filled the night. More voices echoed in the market. James grabbed the girl's hand. "Run!" She stumbled at first, her legs weak from being chained so long, but she kept up. Together they raced through the narrow alleys. Behind them, alarms rang and angry voices shouted. James pulled her into a side tunnel, pressing against the damp wall as alien guards rushed past. The girl's breath came fast and ragged. She looked at him with wide eyes. Why save me? I am not human." James looked at her firmly. "Because you know where my daughter is, and because no child deserves chains." Her lips trembled, and for the first time she gave a small, broken smile. They moved again, slipping deeper into the city's tunnels. The air grew colder, the walls wet with strange slime. Rats with too many legs scurried away at their steps. Finally, when they were far enough from the market, James stopped to let her rest. He gave her his water flask. She drank greedily, her hands shaking. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated, then whispered, "Soraya, Soraya," James repeated, nodding. "I'm James, and you're going to take me to the raiders." She nodded quickly. "Yes, I saw them. They come often. They trade children. They wear black banners with red marks. They took your daughter to the caves. I can lead you." Hope flickered in James's chest. At last a path forward, but their moment of calm didn't last. A low growl echoed through the tunnels. From the darkness ahead, shapes began to move. Hunters, smaller than the guards, but faster. Their glowing eyes lit up the dark. James tightened his grip on his blaster. Soraya clutched his arm. "They will not stop. They hunt escapees." James set his jaw. Then they picked the wrong human to chase. The first hunter lunged. James fired, the shot echoing through the tunnel. The creature dropped, but more came. Soraya screamed as claws scraped the wall near her face. James pulled her behind him, his knife flashing as another beast rushed in. The tunnel shook with chaos, but James fought with the fury of a father who refused to give up. One by one the hunters fell, their bodies littering the ground. When the last one dropped, silence returned. James stood panting, blood dripping from his arm where claws had torn through his sleeve. Soraya looked at him with awe. You fight. Like 10 men, James shook his head. I fight like a father who wants his child back. She reached out and touched his torn sleeve gently. Then we will find her. Together. James looked at her, this broken, bruised alien girl who now stood free beside him. He saw not just a stranger, but a spark of courage. The road ahead would be dangerous, but now he was not alone. And in the shadows of that alien city, the chains had been broken. Not only hers, but his as well. The tunnels spat James and Soraya out into the pale dawn. The alien city loomed behind them, black towers glowing faintly in the morning mist. Smoke rose from the markets they had fled, and the cries of angry voices still echoed faintly. But there was no time to rest. Soraya's chains were gone, yet the memory of them clung to her skin. Every sound made her flinch, every shadow made her tighten her grip on James's arm. They will hunt us, she whispered. Her voice trembled, but her eyes were clear. They never let slaves escape. Hunters will track us. Raiders will spread word. We cannot stop, James nodded grimly. He knew she was right. He had been hunted before back in the wars. He remembered the same feeling, the cold press of danger against his spine, the sense that eyes watched from every corner. But this time, it wasn't just about survival. It was about his daughter. They moved quickly across the rocky hills. Soraya led the way, pointing toward the endless desert where jagged cliffs rose like broken teeth. Beyond there, she said, that is where the raiders hide. I saw them take cages into the caves. That is where your daughter may be. James's chest tightened at her words. The thought of Lily trapped in some dark hole filled his mind with fire. He gripped his blaster tighter. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, scorching the land. The ground cracked under their feet and the air shimmered with heat. Soraya stumbled, weak from days without food. James gave her what little dried rations he carried, though his own stomach ached. Why do you help me? Soraya asked after a long silence. Her silver skin caught the light, but her eyes were dark with confusion. I am not human. I am not your daughter. James glanced at her. Because someone has to. Because you knew where to find her. And because no one deserves to be left in chains. Her lips parted as if she wanted to say more, but the moment was broken by a sound, low, guttural, carried by the wind. James froze. Soraya's face paled. Hunters. From behind the rocks, dark figures emerged. They were not the slow guards from the city. These were trackers, beasts with lean bodies, long claws, and glowing eyes that burned red in the sun. They moved in silence, only the crunch of stones marking their steps. James pulled Soraya behind him. Run when I tell you. The hunters spread out, circling. Their tongues flicked in the air, tasting the scent. One let out a screech and they rushed forward. James fired his blaster, the beam cutting through the first hunter. It fell, but 2 more leapt from the sides. He swung his knife, slashing one across the throat while the other slammed into him, claws raking his chest. Pain tore through him, but he shoved the beast back with raw strength. Run, Soraya, he shouted, but she didn't run. Instead, she grabbed a rock and smashed it against a hunter's head, shrieking with fury. The creature collapsed, twitching. James glanced at her in surprise. For someone who had been chained so long, she fought like she had fire inside her. Still, the hunters kept coming. They were fast, relentless, and they would not stop until blood covered the desert floor. James fired again, his shots echoing across the barren land. One by one, the hunters dropped, but every kill drained his energy. His chest burned from the wound, his arms shook, and sweat blinded his eyes. Finally, when the last beast fell with a hiss, silence returned. The smell of scorched air and blood lingered. James fell to one knee, gasping for breath. Soraya knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she tried to wipe the blood from his chest. You are hurt, she whispered. I've had worse, James muttered, forcing himself to stand. We keep moving. Soraya looked at him with awe. They will send more. They never stop. James met her gaze, his eyes hard. Then I won't stop either. Not until I find her. They pressed on, deeper into the desert. As night fell, they found shelter in a small cave. James lit a small fire, the flames flickering weakly against the stone walls. Soraya sat across from him, her knees pulled to her chest. The firelight danced on her silver skin, making her look otherworldly. For a long time she was quiet. Then softly she spoke. When they took me, I thought no one would ever care. No one ever comes back for the taken. But you came back for me, even though I am not yours. James looked at her, his face tired but strong. I didn't save you to be a hero. I saved you because I couldn't walk away, and because you gave me something no one else has. A chance to find Lily. Her lips curved into a small smile, the first he had seen from her. Then we will find her, together. Before James could reply, a sound echoed outside the cave. A horn, low and deep, the kind that called raiders to war. Soraya's eyes widened in fear. They know we are close. James stood, gripping his blaster once more. His body ached, but his spirit burned brighter than ever. The hunt had begun, yes, but this time it was not only them being hunted. James was hunting too, and he would not stop until he had torn through every raider standing between him and his daughter. The firelight flickered in the cave, and in James's eyes, there was no fear. Only fury. The desert stretched behind them, but James and Soraya knew they could not rest. The raider's horn had carried across the night sky, and soon the hunt would close in again. By dawn, Soraya led James toward another city, larger than the first, filled with merchants, slavers, and shadows that never slept. This is where they sell, Soraya whispered, her voice trembling as they slipped inside through a broken gate. Not all taken or kept in cages. Some are traded fast before anyone dares to fight for them. James's jaw tightened. He scanned every face, every stall, searching for Lily. His daughter's laughter echoed in his memory, stronger now, driving his every step. The marketplace was chaos. Stalls overflowed with strange weapons, glowing crystals, and caged creatures with too many eyes. Traders barked in guttural voices, their hands exchanging credits for lives. Chains rattled as more slaves were dragged onto wooden platforms. James pushed through the crowd, Soraya at his side, her hood pulled low. Suddenly he froze. His heart slammed against his ribs. On a merchant's table, hanging carelessly among trinkets, was Lily's star-shaped necklace. The little silver charm she never took off. James's breath caught. Rage and hope collided inside him. He stepped closer, his eyes locked on it. Where did you get this? James demanded, his voice low but dangerous. The alien merchant, a wide creature with 4 arms and glowing tusks, sneered. Not for sale. Belonged to a child already traded. James's blood boiled. Where is she? The merchant chuckled darkly. If you want answers, you must pay. Everything has a price. Before James could speak again, Soraya tugged his sleeve. Careful, she whispered urgently. They watch. Too many eyes. If you fight here, they will kill us both. James swallowed his fury. He forced himself to step back. Though every part of him wanted to rip the merchant apart, he couldn't risk it. Not yet, but the fire inside him only grew. As they slipped deeper into the market, Soraya pointed toward a group of raiders. Black banners with red marks hung from their shoulders, just as she had described. They laughed as they carried crates toward the slave platforms. Among them were cages, small ones covered with cloth. James's heart pounded. His daughter could be inside one of those. We need a distraction, he muttered. His soldier's mind spun quickly, calculating risks. He scanned the stalls, searching for anything unstable, anything that could spark chaos. His eyes landed on barrels stacked high, leaking strange glowing liquid. Flammable, dangerous, perfect. James pulled Soraya into a narrow alley. When the fire starts, run to the cages. Free who you can. Look for my daughter. I'll hold them off. Soraya's eyes widened. You'll be killed. James shook his head. I'll be busy. Not dead. Without another word, he moved. He slipped through the crowd, silent as a shadow, until he reached the barrels. With one sharp strike of his knife, he cut the bindings. The barrels tumbled, spilling glowing liquid across the dirt. Then he fired his blaster. The explosion was instant. Flames roared into the sky, devouring stalls, sending merchants and raiders screaming. Panic spread like wildfire. The crowd trampled each other, smoke choking the air. Now, James shouted. Soraya dashed forward, her chains gone but her courage bright. She threw herself at the cages, ripping at locks, pulling children free. Alien and human alike stumbled out, their eyes wide with terror. James fought in the center of chaos. Raiders rushed at him, weapons drawn. He fired, each shot striking true, his movements sharp and deadly. Years of battle returned to him like muscle memory. One raider lunged with a blade, slashing his arm. James roared and drove his knife into the raider's chest, twisting hard. Another came from behind, but James spun and fired point blank, sending the alien sprawling into the flames. James, Soraya cried out. He turned, his eyes locking on a small cage she was dragging open. Inside was a child, but not Lily. A human boy, dirty and thin, who clung to Soraya's arm. Tears streaked his face. "She's not here," Soraya shouted, her voice breaking. But this boy said he saw her. She was taken north, deeper into the caves. Hope and fury crashed over James. His daughter was alive, but further away, still trapped. The fire spread fast, consuming the market. Raiders tried to gather their goods, but panic was stronger than greed. Smoke burned James's lungs as he fought through, dragging Soraya and the rescued boy with him. Behind them, the city burned. Screams echoed, the smell of fire and ash filling the night. When they finally stumbled into the open desert, James collapsed to his knees, panting hard. His chest ached. Blood ran down his arm, but his eyes were bright with determination. He gripped the boy's shoulder. "You saw her?" "My daughter?" The boy nodded quickly. "Yes, blonde hair. Star necklace. They took her north. I swear it." James closed his eyes, relief mixing with fire. She was alive. She was close. Soraya touched his arm gently. "We will go north. We will find her. But the raiders will come after us harder now. You burned their market. They will not forgive." James opened his eyes, fierce and unyielding. "Let them come. I don't care if the whole galaxy hunts me. I will burn every city, fight every raider, tear apart every shadow until I hold my daughter again." The flames behind them painted the night sky red, and in that fiery glow, James rose once more. The fire had destroyed the market, but it had lit something even greater, his unstoppable resolve. The desert stretched endless and cold as night fell again. James, Soraya, and the rescued boy moved quickly, keeping low beneath the dunes. Behind them, smoke from the burning market still rose into the dark sky. Raiders would follow that trail soon. The boy, thin and trembling, stayed close to James. His name was Kieran. Though weak, his eyes were sharp with fear and memory. "They took her north," he whispered again and again, as if to remind himself it was real. "The girl with the star necklace. She was still alive when I saw her." Those words were James's fire. Every step, every breath, every wound burned less when he thought of Lily still breathing, waiting for him. By dawn, the cliffs loomed ahead, jagged stone rising like walls of teeth. Shadows moved across their surface. Soraya pointed with a shaking hand. "There, that is the raider's nest." "The caves?" James studied it. Narrow paths wound upward, guarded by figures with black banners. Fires burned at the entrance, their smoke curling into the sky. It looked like a fortress carved by cruelty. But he did not hesitate. He would walk into fire if it meant reaching Lily. As they crept closer, a figure stepped out from behind the rocks. James froze, his hand on his blaster. It was Harlan, his neighbor from home. "Harlan," James whispered in shock. The man looked weary, his clothes torn from travel, but his eyes were steady. "I followed," Harlan said quickly. "When I heard what happened to Lily, I couldn't just sit by. I tracked you through the desert." Relief washed through James. "A friend here at last." "Then you'll help me," James said, his voice rough. "We're going into the caves tonight." But Soraya's eyes narrowed. She stepped closer, whispering, "Something feels wrong." Why would he follow, alone? Through the desert? James ignored her doubt. He wanted to believe. He needed someone from his world. Someone who knew Lily's laughter. Someone who cared. That night, as the fires burned lower at the raiders' camp, James, Soraya, Kieran, and Harlan moved silently along the rocks. The plan was simple: slip inside the caves, find Lily, and escape before dawn. But plans rarely survive the first step. Inside, the cave stank of smoke, sweat, and iron. Chains clattered in the dark, and whispers of children echoed through the stone halls. James's heart nearly broke when he heard it. A soft sob, human, small. Lily. He pushed forward, Soraya guiding him through narrow tunnels. Kieran stayed close, his small hands trembling as he clutched Soraya's arm. At last they saw it. A chamber filled with cages, human children and alien young alike huddled inside, their eyes wide. And there in the corner was Lily. Thin, frightened, but alive. Her star necklace still hung at her neck. "Daddy," she gasped, her voice hoarse but clear. James nearly fell to his knees. He rushed to the cage, gripping the bars, tears burning his eyes. "Lily, I'm here. I'm here." But before he could break the lock, voices thundered behind him. Raiders, dozens of them, and at their front, Harlan. James's blood froze. His neighbor's face was cold now, his eyes empty of kindness. He raised a black banner, the red mark glowing like fire. You led me straight to him, Harlan sneered, his voice twisted with cruelty. The human who defies the raiders. The one who burns markets. You think you can steal from us, James? No, we will trade your life for 10 slaves. James's heart shattered with betrayal. His friend, his neighbor, had been with the raiders all along. Rage replaced the shock. You sold your soul, James growled. You betrayed your people. Harlan only smirked. There is no loyalty in this galaxy. Only survival. And profit. The raiders surged forward. James fired, the blast lighting the chamber, dropping 2 instantly. Soraya dragged Kieran behind the cages, her voice sharp with fear. The fight was chaos. Blades clashed, blasters fired, children screamed. James fought like a man possessed, his body moving with fury and fire. He cut down raiders one by one, but they were endless. Harlan stepped into the fight, his blade flashing. James blocked with his knife, their faces inches apart. You should have stayed home, Harlan hissed. I don't stop. James spat back. Not for you. Not for anyone. Their blades clashed again, sparks flying. James twisted, shoving Harlan back. But pain shot through his side as another raider's blade slashed him. Blood soaked his shirt, but he kept fighting. Soraya's voice cried out. James. He turned just in time to see Harlan lunging at Lily's cage, his blade raised to strike her down. Something inside James snapped. He roared, charging with all his strength, slamming into Harlan and driving his knife deep into his chest. Harlan gasped, his eyes wide with shock. For nothing, he choked, then collapsed. The chamber shook with silence for a heartbeat. Then the raiders howled in rage, rushing harder. James staggered back, blood dripping, his vision blurred, but he stood in front of Lily's cage, shielding her with his own body. Daddy, Lily whispered, her tiny hands gripping the bars. James smiled through the pain. I'm here, Lily, I'll never leave you. Soraya pulled at his arm. We can't hold them forever. We must escape. James' chest heaved. His strength was fading, but his heart burned brighter than ever. He knew this fight wasn't over. And he knew the raiders would not stop until either he or they lay dead. But one truth guided him now. He had found his daughter. And no power in the galaxy would take her away again. The chamber echoed with screams and steel. Smoke from the burning torches curled through the air, stinging James's eyes. He stood bleeding, back pressed against Lily's cage, his knife and blaster ready. Raiders filled the room like a tide of darkness, their red-marked banners glowing in the torchlight. Soraya clutched Kieran behind the cages, her silver skin shining with sweat and fear. But even she, once a chained child, now gripped a fallen blade, ready to fight. James's vision swam from blood loss, but his will was iron. He had found Lily. Nothing else mattered. Daddy, Lily whispered through the bars, her little hands reaching out. Don't let them take me. James's heart broke and hardened at the same time. They won't, he promised. I swear, the raiders closed in. At their center stepped a towering alien with armor made of bone and eyes that burned like fire. His voice was deep, shaking the stone walls. You burned our market. You killed our hunters. You freed our slaves. And now you come here, human, for what is ours. Do you think one man can fight the empire of raiders? James's chest heaved, his blood dripping onto the stone floor. I don't care about your empire, he growled. I only care about my daughter. The raider leader laughed, a sound like thunder. He raised his hand and Lily's cage was dragged forward by chains. Next to it, another cage was pulled out, the one Soraya had been in before. Inside it now, she saw her own kin, alien children taken long ago, their eyes wide with terror. You must choose, the leader sneered. Save your blood, or save hers. You cannot save both, James's stomach twisted. His heart screamed for Lily. She was his daughter, his reason for breathing. But his eyes fell on Soraya, who had guided him, risked everything, and fought beside him. And beyond her, the children of her people, chained just as Lily had been. Could he abandon them to save only his own? The raiders raised their blades, eager to see his choice. The leader grinned cruelly. Show us what a human father truly is. Selfish. Or strong. For one breath, James closed his eyes. He saw Lily's first steps, her laughter when she hugged her toy rabbit, the way she whispered, You'll always protect me, right? He saw Soraya's bruised face in the cage, whispering help when no one else did. He saw Kieran, who had guided him, though his own life was broken. His eyes snapped open, blazing with fire. You want my choice? James roared, his voice shaking the chamber. I choose all of them. Before the leader could react, James fired his blaster into the chains. Sparks flew and the locks burst. Lily's cage door crashed open. She stumbled into his arms, tears streaming down her face. At the same moment, Soraya rushed to the other cages, slashing locks with the stolen blade. Children poured out, crying, screaming, running free. The raiders howled in fury. They surged forward like a wave. James pushed Lily behind him, blaster firing, knife flashing. Soraya fought at his side, her voice a sharp cry in the chaos. Even Kieran grabbed a stone and threw it, defiance burning in his small hands. The leader charged, his massive blade raised. James met him head-on. Their weapons clashed, sparks flying. Pain shot through James's body as the raider's strength drove him back. But his rage was stronger. He thought of Lily, of every child in chains, and roared as he drove his knife deep into the leader's chest. The alien stumbled, blood spilling, his fire eyes dimming. Human impossible. He gasped, then collapsed onto the stone. The raiders faltered. Without their leader, their courage cracked. Children fled into the tunnels, Soraya guiding them, shouting for them to run. James stood swaying, his body broken but his spirit unyielding. One last raider lunged at Lily. James, half blind from blood, threw himself between them, taking the blade into his shoulder. He howled in pain but crushed the raider with his final strength. Then silence. The chamber, once filled with chains and screams, now echoed with freedom. James dropped to his knees, holding Lily close. Her tiny arms wrapped around his neck, her sobs shaking his heart. I knew you'd come, Daddy, I knew it. He pressed his forehead against hers, his tears mixing with hers. I will always come. Always. Soraya knelt beside them, her blade still in her hand, her silver skin glowing in the torchlight. You did it, she whispered, awe in her voice. You saved them all? James looked at her, tired but strong. No, we did it. The freed children gathered, eyes wide with gratitude. For the first time, they saw not just a human, not just a stranger, but a protector, a father, not only to one, but to all who had no one. Outside, the night sky stretched endless and quiet. The raiders' banners burned, falling to ash in the desert wind. James staggered out of the cave, Lily in his arms, Soraya and Kieran at his side, the rescued children following. They were battered, scarred, but alive. And as the stars shone above, James knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was filled with chains, with cruelty, with shadows. But now, he carried a fire inside him that nothing could extinguish. He had saved his daughter. He had saved others. And as long as he lived, he would keep fighting for every child who cried in the dark. The relentless father had become something greater, a light in the shadows, a promise to the broken, and a nightmare to the raiders who thought humanity could be crushed.